Hey yo, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Oh, it's so good to be back in your guys' presence again. Just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, I'm glad to be back giving you another message. I love when people inspire me and talk to me about where they're at on their journeys, to share information with you. And it's usually things that I see like everybody going through that will help the universal community and what they're going through. And so that's what we're going to address today. It is something I have addressed before, but I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into it differently today. And we're going to be dealing with the programming of fear itself. And so I did want to preface this to say that this is for spiritual advice purposes, because I am an ordained minister. I am not a licensed therapist, so if you need help, please go and seek professional help. I am here to help and serve and love the best way that I can through my own personal experiences and what I see happening in the universe, what's going on. There you go. So with that, let's get started. All right, y'all. So I have had a number of friends and one of my clients and myself sitting in the space of, I want to move forward. I don't know what's holding me back. I can't see it. I don't know. It's getting on my nerves because I am ready to go. Now, for me, that's when I know a person is ready to bust it. They are ready to break those barriers and say, okay, I'm done with this. That's when you know someone's ready as a coach, right? And I've been sitting and thinking as I've been helping people with their plans and on their way and stuff. I've been sitting and thinking about how to address the programming of fear. Now, why do I say the programming of fear? Because when we're born, we're not born with fear. We're born with love, most of us, okay? And I've been looking at the trauma that occurs in children and how bad it goes when your filter is not developed yet to really discern right from wrong. You are in survival mode, so you will do what helps you survive and preserve, right? Then experiences will come in and you make them true based upon what you notice from other people and what you notice with yourself in your constant environment. And it's funny. There was a video game that actually put this on my mind. Dark Deception, one of my favorite video games. And I was looking at one of the portals, and it's Agatha. And she represents anger and wrath. And she represents a child who was cheated in life and treated so bad that's that unbridled, unchecked fury of a child that doesn't have justice brought to them to make things right for them. So they sit in that space, and it's not filtered because they're a kid. They haven't learned it like we do. And I was thinking about that. And the reason why I was thinking about that is because I think of the adults around children that create these things in children because of their own. It's a vicious cycle that we see per family, from adult to kid. And it may not even be a blood child. It can just be a child that you're around. It could be teaching children stuff. But us comes through. Like our experiences come through, and we can negatively affect someone whose filter is growing and building. We're not there yet. So when I think of fear, I think of programming. Now, on this plane alone, we are programmed from ley lines and everything. You heard me say this before, to our radio waves, to what we see on TV, propaganda we see on TV, to think a particular way, right? Then you have friends and family. We choose similar friends to our family or opposite, depending on what we go through. There's their programming. And then their advice on us, right? And then all of that seeps into our subconscious, and it begins our programming. And a lot of times when we can't move and we can't do things, we don't understand how deep the programming runs. We don't understand how deep it goes and how deep it is. So much so we won't see it. We won't be understanding that we're mirroring it out in life, and that's what we're getting back. And we don't understand that cyclical cycle, right? But then we won't even understand we're afraid, except when we're in our moments alone by ourselves. And all we have is the emotion and the thoughts of ourselves. And some of us, we don't want to deal with that. So what do? We go to our addictions. We drink, smoke, sex. What else have you? Go to our addictions. We do this. It is a constant mess, right? Because we don't want to deal with it. We all have a fear. Most people have a fear until they realize that fear is an illusion. And it serves no purpose. Now, physiologically speaking, it does in the flight or flight sense to know with our intuition something's not right. I'm not going to talk about that today. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the programming of fear. The number one fear we have is the fear of getting hurt. That could be physical pain. That could be emotional pain. We will do whatever it takes to not sit in hurt and that type of pain. Whatever it takes to avoid it. I know this. That's why that has been my lesson, because that was the pain in my life I didn't want. Spirit saw fit to give it to me, but I understand why I needed it, but I had to get through it to do that. So let's go through a couple of examples of fear that I want to be able to help the universal community get over, okay? So one fear we have that's huge is the fear of getting it wrong. The fear of doing something wrong, whether for punishment or pain. Pain is our gauge. That's the number one thing we try to avoid, which is the number one thing that causes our change. Okay? But the fear of getting it wrong causes an inability of us to experience because of the pain concept or the punishment concept that brings pain. Okay? The fear or the inability also of oneself to be oneself because we're afraid that others won't accept us. So I'm going to talk on these two things. Okay. There is no right or wrong. When you're living in fear, your wrong is, I don't want to experience this pain. I don't want this consequence that's coming to me. That's being exerted by someone who has control over you or an institution that has control over you. To get out of that, and this is going to sound easier than what it's going to be, but this is really what it is. To get out of that, you have to regain control, which means you have to leave the people alone that's messing with you. You have to leave the people alone that's controlling you. And if you're a teenager, as I tell my teens, you have to make a plan to take that control back when you're able to. And whatever that looks like. That may be you getting a job, moving out. That may be you controlling what you can control, but talking with a counselor at school about how to, like, if that parent don't change, because a lot of times parents don't change. They don't even want to see the damage they're doing. So that could be talking to a counselor and making that plan in yourself, how to deal with that until it's time for you to leave. Understand something. When you're in fear of getting it wrong because you're living by the punishment, it can be the punishment people are putting on you or you're putting on yourself. Okay? The one on self is very difficult to deal with. The one put on by other people can be very difficult to deal with too, depending on who it is, especially if they've been manipulating you to the point that you believe the lie. You believe the fear. That's difficult. This is how people get folks to stay in relationships, and this is how people get folks to stay stagnant where they're at. So let me say this. The fear of people not accepting you. A lot of times you're going after people who don't accept themselves. So how can they accept you? They don't even love themselves enough to appreciate everything in themselves. And then you're expecting them to be in a space and a place just because they sound smarter. They may be manipulative. They may not. Right? But that doesn't mean that it's settled and they understand it in them. So a lot of times we're expecting people to accept us, and they haven't accepted who they truly are. So they can't really accept you. So what do? They make you feel less. Because sometimes you're a step ahead of them, and they can't have that. They can't have that fallback. They can't have that fail. Understand what I'm saying? And sometimes that is the basis and the purpose as to why people feed your fear in the first place. To keep you there so they can control you. So when it comes to the ability to accept oneself, you have to accept you. Other people do not have to accept you. They do not have to be your friend. They don't have to like you. And a lot of times they don't. And they will present like they do. You have to like you. You have to accept you. Which means that leads to setting the boundaries of what you will accept from people and what you won't accept from people. Okay? You set boundaries, because otherwise you're going to be controlled. Fear is all about controlling someone and using a tactic to keep that control by initiating fear. So accept the real and the love of you. Sorry, I got an interruption. Sorry. So accept the real love of you. Okay? Another fear. Fear of being seen or being invisible. All right. The real you being seen. Now, that's one big one. There is a fear of being invisible to people and not being seen. And I've been there. But the fear of the real you being seen and people not liking it. Okay. Next this question. Would you rather have people around you that truly love you for you, or would you rather have fake ass people around you just to have fake people around you? That's the question that it comes down to. You know, a lie eventually is seen, and it takes a lot of work to keep a lie up and to keep a lie going. So if you're afraid for your real you to be seen and you're going to lose the people around you, one, how real are the people around you? Two, how real are you? Because if you have that fear, that means you're afraid of your real you. And what happened was you drew in people that had that same concept of the fake of them, projecting a fake them out, but scared of their real self. And so there's now a community of you, right? At some point, though, someone in this community is going to want to be real, and they're going to leave y'all behind because you're not real. That's what happens. Okay. If you want to say it's chaos theory, anything that can happen will happen. Well, there you go. It doesn't always stay the same. Someone wants to change and move, right? So, this is, I'm going to give you this example because I have my notes. Never Ending Story. My favorite story. My favorite book. Okay. Never Ending Story. The South Gate, which corresponds to the South Node. Oh, that was so brilliant. How they did that. So, the South Gate, if anyone knows about the story of Never Ending Story, it's about a boy named Bastian who was always overlooked, loved to read books, and who didn't know he had a quest to save a world that wasn't real and didn't exist. But he cared about it in the story so much, it did, but the concept did. Where our story never ends. Because we're energy, the story never ends, right? Excuse me. So, he had to go on a quest. He had a character, person, and he had himself in the real world. And so, the South Gate, he saw this boy that was his real self And the boy that's the warrior saw his real self, which looked like a weak child, because he didn't know how strong he was yet. What was so poignant to me is this is our shadow. This is our self-know. This is our who am I really? And a lot of times when we look inside to see who we really are, and I'm not talking about just in the heart chakra, third eye, I'm talking about that third brain. I'm talking about that third chakra. When we look and feel in there who we really are, and we see who we really are, baby, a lot of us could not take what we see, and that's what happened to Bastion. He could not take who he saw. And Atreyu could not take who he saw looking back at him. Couldn't stand it. Didn't even want to. Okay? So, and looking at that, seeing your real self and accepting your real self, you're real. If you can't, now there can be people that can, right? Where you can't. But then you will never see the real in anyone else, because your lenses is stuck on your fake. Your lenses is stuck on who you are not. So you can't see that person trying to love you and even appreciate who they really are, because you can't see and accept who you really are. This is what breaks up a lot of relationships. A lot. This is what broke up one of mine. This is what breaks up a lot of relationships. Accepting who you really are. You're not giving another person a chance to even get to know it, because you're hiding behind it because someone else hurt you. And you're afraid of that hurt from someone else. That is not that person. You see? So you heal that. Or you're supposed to, or you're supposed to try to heal that before you try to be with someone else. So you're on equal playing field with each other. It includes friends, includes family. Okay? So you have to do your shadow work and your self-know to get to you, the real you that's there. All right. Fear of shaming. This comes with family. I'm not talking about them fake ass friends who I love you and then they shame you in front of folks and they think that shit is cute. I'm not talking about that. That's not a real friend. I don't care if it's even in jest. That's not a real friend. But I'm talking about when you're trying to be you and you're ashamed to your family. I know a lot of people can recognize this, resonate to this. I know this is going to be a trigger point for some people. I get it, because this right here is what screws up a lot of people. A lot of people. This right here is like the trauma causing. So I'm going to get into this for a moment. This is also what I found as a basis of a lot of racism too. So let me explain. Okay. I did a video before to parents about this. And I'm going to do it to adults. But it's going to be about parents and guardians too. Alright, so check this out. A lot of times, families will want the children to be a particular way, to be successful, one, so they can take care of their parents. Okay, that's like a requirement in some cultures. But also, so they don't bring shame to their family. Okay, and embarrassment. Never mind about that child having their own life. And yes, being responsible for their part of the family, absolutely. Being responsible adults and growing and learning for themselves as to why they want to, right? But we have the ones that project their trauma that was put on them onto their children. This is how we screw up our children. And then when people are around, you can't shame my name. You can't shame me. This is what you're going to do. But never mind, that person has their own life, their own wants. They're not an extension of your pride. In the aspect of, they're not there to make you look good. They're not there. Children are not there for you to take their choice away. Okay? I'm not saying they're to grow up privileged. Hell no. Me being a teacher, no. However, I'm also saying, do not put your trauma on your kids. Solve your shit. They're not your trophy. Not in that aspect. Not in the materialistic aspect. Not in the egotistical aspect. Children are not your trophy. And a lot of times, parents use children as their trophy. Look how good I am. Look, who did the work? That's the same thing to me about God and us. Who's doing the work? I'm the child doing the work. I'm not here to make you look good. I'm here to do the work. We co-create. Same thing. You co-create with that child, but we're not here to make you look good, and we're not here for your glory. No. They have their own life. You're supposed to raise them. They're on loan to you, and you're supposed to raise them to learn to love themselves, to educate them, to raise higher than us. For those of you that get jealous because they're able to do what you weren't able to do, you set it up so they could do what you're not able to do. Be proud of them, not jealous. Got a lot of jealous parents. Okay, you got a lot of jealous generational shit because generations before us weren't able to do what we are able to do now, and we don't respect it, and we use that and we manipulate that, and we don't understand the gratitude we need to have that someone sacrificed so we could have more now. All of that and that jealousy and cleaning that out. Look. Don't grasp. Help. Okay? Your trauma does not need to be their trauma. They didn't live through it. Remember when you said for your child you're going to make it better? So make it better. Because the more we put this trauma on them, we at least had some filters to be able to handle it. Our generations before, not so much, but they had to handle it or else, right? And many didn't, but many more did. Now we have generations where our children and their children can't handle it. Because they don't have the tools to handle it anymore. And that's from society taking them away. That's many different things. You know, it's a give and take. Society's came in and said certain things. We said certain things. Society telling us no. We telling society, all of that. And it was who's left in the middle is the child or the person that's still forming, trying to figure it out. While we're up here bickering and they're trying to figure it out, they're lost with our trauma. No. No. So, shaming is not necessary. Discipline is necessary. Hands down. Accountability is necessary. Responsibility is necessary. Shaming is not. That's not necessary. So stop raising your children in shame and then expecting them to be okay because you said, well, I'm okay. You're not fucking okay. You just put that trauma on somebody else. You're not okay. You're not being you. And you're not loving you. And then as it sits up, as the years go by, and then you're not strong enough to deal with it. And then you wonder why your child is messed up, or your cousin or whatever, because you weren't strong enough to deal with it. And then you're going to throw it on them and expect them to be? Really? No. No. Someone has to heal it. And then that's when they're talking about the generational healing comes in. Because someone has to heal it so it stops. Like, for example, my family. My nana and my mom did not get along. Then me and my mother didn't get along. And then I have daughters. I'm like, no. I'm stopping that. That is not going how this is not how this is going to be. So then clearing my generational line, right? So in that aspect, someone has to do it. I'm like, okay. Now the other generational stuff I'm not going to talk about. I'm talking about other generational curses where there's stuff on families and situations repeat with you and other people. I'm not going to touch that. I'm touching this part. When you have things you can fix immediately and stop the cycle that way, you need to. Don't repeat it. So I said, I'm not repeating that. I ended up treating them somewhat how my mom did. But I allowed them to talk to me about it, and I said, okay, not doing that. I'm going to fix it. And I did. I fixed it in here. And I fixed it with them. So they don't, and then cleaning out that trauma. So they don't have that trauma for their kids. Okay? Also, fear is shaming, racism, and prejudice. It's funny. The cultures that are more free are doing their thing and cannot understand the concept of cultures that are not. The cultures that are not more free, they don't have the freedom of choice, the freedom of voice and stuff, hate on the cultures that are. But you don't understand what people went through to be free in that way. So don't hate and shame on folks because you don't have the freedom they have. Go get it. There's a consequence to everything. Go get it. You just got to deal with the consequences of getting it. Okay? So, I notice that's why a lot of prejudice will last. Because people being free within themselves. Right? So fear of not having a spot. This is an entertainment industry thing. And in the entertainment industry, it's about who you can replace. Who can take your space. Make your own lane. I'm not here to replace nobody because ain't nobody me. Make your own lane. For coaches, a lot of times, coaches, business people, right? People will have a concept similar to ours, and yes, people steal. I don't even lie. People steal. However, when you're a wellness coach, these are concepts that have been around since the beginning of time. We are borrowing from that information, from spirit, right? So, coaches will get mad because someone will have a similar message. We're all here to do a particular thing, a particular way we're to do it. Period. So, there's a spot for everyone. And just because other folks try to exert control, let's see, there goes again, and create this competition of who can you replace, its own entertainment industry and those other conglomerates in business that keep it going. Well, competition is healthy. Okay, a little competition is healthy. But then when you're pitting people who are both pivotal for the information needed to give, but you're going to create a light competition. No. No one can be in competition for you because it's you. Now, if there's a spot for a job or something like that, okay. All right. But if you have a passion to do something that someone else is doing and you're doing it your way and you're not stealing their shit, you find a way to do it. You find a way. It may not be with that job. That may not have been meant for you. Something else may be meant for you. And in here, you may not be ready, so you're doing your own divine timing. And a lot of times, and that's what I want to get to, a lot of times when you have fear, right, and things don't move, and you're wondering why things are falling apart, and why it's not moving fast enough, and why it's not moving, because you're influencing that divine timing, because you're holding on to the fear in here, which means that you're not ready to move forward. Sometimes divine will not let you move forward in the wrong emotion, because it will fall apart because the foundation is fake. So why is it going to let you move forward and go through a whole nother cycle that you don't need to go through? Sometimes we determine what cycles we need to go through. Divine may say, no, we ain't doing that shit. We don't have time. So sometimes talking about replacing your space and taking your spot, right? No one can take what your name is on. No one. So keep that in mind. No one can do it like you. No one can move like you. But a lot of times, our fear keeps us from moving forward where we need to move forward to. For whatever reason, it will keep us in that seat. It will keep us there. And that's not where we need to be. Okay? So, understand that this is not about replacing anybody. It's just about being you. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a part 2, because this is getting longer than I thought it was, and I wanted to have y'all sit up here. But I'm going to give a part 2 because there's a couple of other areas of fear I want to get to. And I really, really want to delve into when it's the fear of you stopping progress. All right, y'all. I love you. That's my troops. I'm so sorry. I love you. And we're going to do this thing, and we're going to move on to a part 2. Take care, y'all. Bye-bye now.